Hello, me lovelies. That's my flawless British accent. Welcome to the show. My name is Chris. I'll be your host. And this is the weekly Spinner Rack where we're going to talk about the latest comic book news of the past week and the latest comics that came out this week. We've got a live chat going. It's always fun. And I have coffee to perk me up and get this show going ASAP. Let's throw out some shout outs to folks that are already here. So, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for jumping in. Always nice to have this good mix of a ton of friendly faces and new people. There's always a little lag. So, you're probably like, hey, wait a minute. I'm saying hi now. Well, I missed it because of the lag. No, there's a bunch of people filtering in. Just went live, so I'm just using my monitor to fix my hair a little. It's a little wild. I also, of course, have the show Comic Tropes. Of course, everybody knows that. Wanted to let you know I am very, very close to wrapping up an edit on an episode about Mr. John Byrne. And the great news is, shortly after that one goes live, I should have an episode ready for you guys about Invincible. So I do have some content coming on that channel that I'm very excited to share with everybody. But of course, you're here right now to talk about just comics this week, recent stuff. Let's see. There was a new comic book adaptation that came out this week. Scott Pilgrim. New animated version of Scott Pilgrim has debuted on Netflix. And I watched the first episode. I like the style. I like the animation quite a bit. There is a fun nostalgia factor with having the original live action cast all return to do the voice acting for their characters. I was surprised at how well it works. We'll see if they make any big changes or if it's an improvement or about the same as the original comic. I love the original comic, but I need to take another look because, you know, it's been a while since that came out. Maybe some of it hasn't aged too well. We'll double check. But I checked out the first episode, and so far all I can say is I did enjoy that first episode. That was pretty fun. Watched it over the weekend and loved it. That's nice to hear. That's really cool. Metallica to you, Chris, and all the chat. Well, Metallica to you, Joe Dent. That's lovely. Met Brian Lee O'Malley on Friday at a concert. Oh, that's crazy. I met Brian Lee O'Malley back out at least one, maybe more than one of the Small Press Expos, SPX, a nice sort of modest size convention that takes place in Bethesda every year. When I lived in the DC area, I'd always go to that. That was a great convention. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to it. But the first episode was pretty close to the comics. We'll see if it makes some changes after that. I've heard that they've made some updates and stuff. So, but I didn't feel like I really caught too much in just that first episode, that other than just saying that Ramona delivers Netflix DVDs specifically. That was an update, but that's a pretty minor update. Let's see. I just found your channel. Your Lady Cop and ROM review was awesome. You're funny as heck. That's what they say. No, thank you very much for watching. That's very kind of you. The box set Oni Press is putting out looks so cool. That was an exciting one to be reading when it was coming out new, and just like the anticipation for each new volume and what that would bring. That was really cool. Hello from Mexico City. Well, buenas noches. Thank you for jumping in. Hey, it's my sister and it's my friend Chuck who put in an emoji that this system didn't recognize. Lovely to have you both. I did check out the Doctor Who Children in Need special. I'm a pretty big fan of Doctor Who in general, but definitely David Tennant specifically. So I checked that out and I got a kick out of it. I'm hopeful. What is it? This weekend, I believe, the show returns in the form of specials. So I'm looking forward to that. Not specifically comics, but definitely nerdy. Tell you what, let me add a screen here so that we can talk about some comic book news of the week. There we go. as always, just nailed it with the thumbnail, right? I hope you guys know that these thumbnails are basically tongue in cheek. It's me trying to play the algorithm game. They're not really intended to be too serious. Oh, that's just so. Oh no, not the Liefeld art selling for a bunch. Oh, my heart. Oh, I can barely take it. It's just me playing the game. You put in like a certain type of thumbnail, trust me, YouTube rewards that. So let's see. Uh, First of all, this is kind of a small piece of news, but Comixology has been around for a minute, and it is finally shuttering its doors. Even though we knew this was coming, I thought I'd mention it. So Amazon sent an email to Comixology users this week, including me, letting us know that it is closing December. The short of it is December 4th, Comixology is no more. Basically, as of the 4th, all purchases that you've made through there will have migrated over to the Kindle app. So Comixology was a real bright spot at one point, which is probably why Amazon bought it. They wanted to capture some of that market share. I don't think it really worked for them. That's why they're sort of ending it. Little history. It actually launched all the way back in 2007, a digital platform, a way to buy digital comics pretty easily, read them pretty easily. It was a really good reader. I think that they made a great reader. And when it was all originally just on Comixology, it was a very easy interface. You could look up the comic you wanted, buy it, and read it all right there in the app. Amazon slowly chipped away at that, made you have to buy the comic through their website and then download and read it through the Comixology app. It was junky. They ruined it. They ruined it. Beats me why. Probably some sort of vice president of Kindle fighting for, their job, something like that. I really don't know. Let's see. It's like removing the competition was always the plan. Well, yeah, I agree with you on one level, Chuck, but on another level, I think that if Comixology just continued to do exactly what it originally was starting to do, I think that Amazon just wanted to get a chunk of that market, and I don't think that they really did. I don't think that they were completely successful holding on to it because they kept doing little edits to Comixology that made it worse. I think that their goal was to just buy a bunch of market share. They saw that like digital comics are a big part of the future of comics, and they wanted to get in on that, I think. But they ruined Comixology. They pulled in EA. Did EA Games do something along those lines? I assume that's because somebody else says this is the equivalent to EA buying a game studio, buying it, do nothing with it, then shut it down. So yeah, maybe. NerdSync did a good video documenting the downfall of Comixology. I saw that they did that, and I'll have to watch that because I don't think I've really got time to do something similar. So I should just watch that one. That would be interesting. Did you really recently buy one? Yeah, I mean they'll push that over through Kindle so that you've got something of equal value, but yeah, it's dead. My theory is that Amazon doesn't want to pay Google or Apple for the percentage. You're definitely right there, EJ, 1,000%. Yes, when you sell a comic on, Google, Apple, etc., through the app, through the Comixology app, that meant that Google, Apple, that they were getting a little bit of that profit. Amazon wanted to sell it exclusively through their website so that they got all of that profit, but that created a stupid interface. So then you lose a lot of sales. It wasn't smart. It wasn't smart. It was greedy. It was greedy and short-sighted. I've got something else to say about EJ Sue, but let me just acknowledge this super chat. Thank you, Joe Dent, the Metallica fan here. You need to skip to the end, Chris. Do a Fred Sanford double clutch for your thumbnail. Comixology is over. I'm coming, Elizabeth. That was my perfect impression without doing a stereotypical black voice impression. I really threaded a needle there. That's what you get on this channel. No, but if anybody is watching the Invincible cartoon adaptation, and if you watched it very closely, you would have seen an alien in the background, an alien from the race seen in the comic book Tech Jacket, which is the book E.J. Sue originally drew with Robert Kirkman. So look closely. What are the names of those aliens again? All of a sudden, I'm bad at names. All of a sudden, it's disappearing from my head, even though I should know it. The people, they're green aliens. They're sort of like weak of frame, so they create the Tech Jacket armor. If you haven't read it, that's a great comic, by the way. All right, we'll move forward, though. We'll move forward with news, because I've got a bunch of news, and yeah, there's always stuff to talk about. A bunch of the stuff for Free Comic Book Day was announced this week. Stuff that we can look for. Thank you, EJ. Sorry that wasn't coming to me. The Geldarians. You can see a Geldarian in the background of the most recent Invincible episode. So look for that. If you're a fan, look for that. Owen's Reviews is a fan. All right. You know what's funny is a bunch of the publishers announced specific titles, and then DC was just like, we will also have a comic on Free Comic Book Day. Not a lot to go on. We could probably safely assume it'll be a Batman comic, and then there'll also be a Justice League comic, but they didn't say anything. They just said, we will also be there. So we've got... Marvel announced several things, and here's why I'm mentioning it. There's something that's revealed within this, because all they're doing is like showing us the cover and telling us the creative team. One of the creative teams was interesting. So Marvel is going to have a Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe comic. Cool. A Blood Hunt / X-Men comic, which they note the writers on. Jed MacKay, well, we know he's doing the stuff with... this Blood Hunt vampire story. We already knew that. And then Gail Simone. Well, all the X-Men titles are getting new creative teams in a moment. This seems to hint strongly that Gail Simone would be the new writer for X-Men. Is Chris late or is my Wi-Fi failing? I'm leaning towards the second one. Everything on my end seems to be working properly. Free Comic Book Day is in May. It's just that a bunch of the publishers have already announced what they will be providing. So, yeah. So, we'll see. Gail Simone on X-Men could, or seems very likely that that's what's happening. Seems likely. Marvel's also putting out a Marvel Voices book. That's where they have some, minority characters written by basically BIPOC creators. We've got also, of course, a Star Wars / Darth Vader book and a Spidey and His Amazing Friends book for the all ages readers. Boom announced 2 books, no cover art shown yet, but one is called The Worlds of James Tynion IV. The other is the Boom Studios 10th Anniversary Extravaganza. Dark Horse announced a Hellboy Stranger Things book, which could work theoretically. I'm curious. Oh, and I just realized David Harbour actually played Hellboy. They should do a joke on that, because then when you're reading that, you'll go, I get that reference. David Harbour is an actor on Stranger Things, and he played Hellboy. I get that. That's a reference. Let's see. Oh, I mean, totally. James Tynion is like definitely... a sellable name in comics. He has really made it. Let's see, what else do we have? A few things. Dynamite announced a Johnny Quest book. Fair enough. Image. No cover art shown, just black, but they said it will be called Transformers and G.I. Joe Welcome to the Energon universe, but they say that there will be 3 stories in there: a Void Rivals story by Kirkman and De Lorenzo, a Transformers story by Daniel Warren Johnson, and something for G.I. Joe Written by Joshua Williamson. I forget who the artist of it was. So we'll see. We'll see. Yes, I remember the TNG X-Men crossover because what is it? Wait, I don't remember that joke though. They talked about how Professor X and Picard remarked about how similar they looked. Geez, that's funny because I sort of thought that came out before the X-Men movies, but maybe it didn't. Mark Silvestri drew it. I remember Spock neck pinching Wolverine. Yes, they said that Ryan Ottley will be doing the cover for that, but they didn't show it to us yet. But sounds fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. One last one that was announced. IDW just said a Ninja Turtles book. Okay, another big surprise. Oh, do you have the license to Ninja Turtles? Do you have the license for anything else these days? Not really. Sort of. Let's see. Are you guys ready for a legacy character? Do legacy characters excite you? I think it depends. I like some legacy characters when it's a supporting character or a sidekick type person that we've known for a while inherits the role. And I'm going to talk about, like Wally West going from Kid Flash to Flash. Dick Grayson going from Nightwing to Batman for a while. I also liked, Rhodey becoming Iron Man. I liked Jane Foster becoming Thor. I do like some of these. But sometimes when it's just a brand new person, like Frank Petruski is the new Darkhawk. You're like, okay. Let's see. So anyway, we've got a new Ghost Rider coming. It's going to be a completely new person. So yes, we have Johnny Blaze. Yes, we have Danny Ketch. Yes, we have Robbie Reyes. This is another guy. But there was a quote from the writer. You see the creative team is listed on this image that I'm showing. Artist Danny Kim. Writer Ben Percy, and he had talked about how much he loves Ghost Rider to Marvel, which is a good sign, I will say. And I like a few things that Ben Percy has done. I do like his Predator Wolverine a little bit. But here's something he said. I moved all over as a kid, and I was often living in rural areas, so I rarely had a comic shop I could visit with any regularity. But when I did go to a store, I'd be pulling back issues of Ghost Rider from the dusty bins. And at garage sales and convenience stores, I was always drawn to the horror titles. That flaming skull is the coolest design in comics. I agree that it's a fantastic design. It is a fantastic design. Yeah, I was open to the idea of a new Punisher, but a Punisher running around with sci-fi weapons, it doesn't interest me as much, I guess. I need something a little more gritty and ground-based. Frank Petruski was your favorite Darkhawk? Marvel cut me that royalty check. I just sold somebody on Darkhawk by inventing Frank Petruski. Moving on. Here's a book I actually think it sounds like a good idea. I think it sounds like a great idea, to be honest. They're going to have Peter Parker and Miles Morales in an ongoing team-up book. These are characters that work really well together, even though they're technically both Spider-Man. They have a good chemistry together. So yeah, Marvel is launching the Spectacular Spider-Man as an ongoing monthly book starting in March. I think that's promising as an idea. The writer is Greg Weisman, and a lot of people will probably know that he was the creator and a writer on the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. I have to admit, I didn't see that. It was just not something I know much about. Artist Humberto Ramos, who's definitely an artist that people either really, really like or really, really don't like. I tend to like a lot of his work, actually, and he's done a lot of Spider-Man. Worked with Dan Slott pretty extensively in his original run. Creator of Gargoyles. And he's writing the Gargoyles comic, too, of course. I'm right here, man. I don't know what to say. So anyway, I think that's a decent team-up. And I think that we've seen some hints at what this chemistry can be like from both the recent video game and, of course, those Spider-Verse movies. Well, really the first Spider-Verse movie, Into the Spider-Verse. I think that Peter Parker as just a slightly older mentor works pretty well. But let's see. I've heard that it's a very good cartoon. Yeah, I've heard that. I need to watch Spectacular. Cartoon was awesome. Can't wait to see what he does with two Spideys. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's cartoony, and he's pushed the cartooniness. But it works well on some characters. Let's see. I've got a quote from, or two pairs of quotes from Greg Weisman talking about the book to Marvel, because they did a press release and all. So he said, "I see the younger Miles trying really hard to show his maturity to his mentor Peter, while the older Pete feels free to let out his inner 16-year-old with Miles." That's an interesting angle to sort of like play off where their personalities might otherwise be, that they're sort of trying to be somebody for the other person. I think that makes a little bit of sense. I don't know. He's put some thought into this. Second quote, "There's a bit of a role reversal to the normal mentor-protege relationship than one might expect to see. What we're seeing here is the evolution from mentor and protege to them simply being good friends." I think that we saw that in the second Spider-Man game. I don't know. I love anything Miles, so this will be on my watch list. Okay. I've got some related news, actually. Both of them ignoring Spider-Boy. Well, who knows? Spider-Boy may show up, actually. But I think Spider-Boy works a little bit more for like an even younger audience. Where was I? Oh, yeah. As long as we're sort of mentioning that relationship, I had a small piece of news about the video game, because I think that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was a very fun game. Maybe it was a little short. I can kind of agree with that criticism. I feel like I don't have that much free time, and I 100%ed it within like a week or so. So maybe it's not the longest game, but you know what? I'll probably still end up getting any DLC missions that they come up with, because it plays really well, and it was a really good story. It's its own story. It's not. It's its own continuity. I liked it. Is all I'll say. I liked it. But here's the news. So it was nominated by the Game Awards for 7 different things. Best Game of the Year. That's a big one. Also, Best Action Adventure Game, Game Direction, Narrative, Innovation and Accessibility. I'm curious what that necessarily means. Audio design and voice acting, specifically Yuri Lowenthal as Peter Parker. What would they have done, basically, in terms of innovation in accessibility? What would they have done? I didn't think that the menus and such were bad, but did they do something innovative with that? I'm trying to think, because there are games that will have like innovative, menu or interactivity and stuff. But I'm trying to think of like what, doesn't mean that they'll win. It just means they were nominated. But I can't really think of what they did there that was special. By the way, these are awards that are open to the fans. The general public votes. So the voting is open now. If you go to Game Awards, and that goes through the 7th. Still sticking on Spider-Man. It's almost like I thought this week's news through in terms of segues. Comics writer confused by the Madam Web trailer. I got this because I had the same confusion. Oh, hold on. Let me go back to this, because we're getting an input from somebody who actually did work in game design, video game design, specifically on menus and accessibility and GUIs, interfaces. Chuck says they streamline button prompts so that people with disabilities don't have to do things like tap a button a bunch. Oh, okay. I didn't know that they did that. Okay, so you could go into settings and you can make an adjustment for that. Got it. So that's what innovation in accessibility is. It doesn't mean just having an accessible set of options for everybody. It means accessible for people with disabilities. Well, that's great. That's great to hear that they did something like that then. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I really appreciate it. I was sincerely curious. All right. So let me jump back to the Madam Web trailer, which came out this week and looked a little more interesting than I was expecting. I will say that. My shoulder still hurts, but it's a lot more flexible. I can move it like up and down really well. I can't move it behind me much. And it hurts, but it's getting better. Thanks for asking. So, Sony's Madam Web. She's a madam, and she's made out of webs. All right, so the trailer came out. Don't know how many of you saw it. It's the latest Sony Spider-Man universe thing. Craven, Venom, Morbius, all that stuff, and it shows Ezekiel Sims seemingly hunting down the women who become versions of Spider-Woman in the comics. That's a little different. In the comics, Ezekiel Sims was a mentor to Peter Parker, not a villain. He was a guy who he was older, and he got spider powers through totemic, mystical means. And so he guided Spider-Man and stuff against Morlun, who was an interdimensional villain that would he was a leech. He killed Spider-Men in various multiverse areas and sucked out their energy and all that stuff. So even though he's called Ezekiel Sims, he seemingly acts a lot more like Morlun, in my opinion. The trailer, aside from the main character, Cassandra Webb, young in this version, not an elderly blind lady in a wheelchair. Probably the final shot is her falling off a bridge and breaking her back and having a rebar pipe go through her eye socket, and she goes, "I am now Madam Web." But it showed us there's 3 other important characters. There's Julia Carpenter, Maddie Franklin, Anya Corazon. All of them basically become versions of Spider-Woman in the comics, although technically Anya Corazon was always called Arachne, but same kind of idea. Yeah. Oops, I guess that was all I had. But so here on the right, though, here on the right is the creator I'm talking about, J. Michael Straczynski, the guy that created Ezekiel Sims and Morlun, right? Yeah, I believe he created Morlun, co-created. Here was his comment on the trailer. He said, "And well, this just happened. It's definitely the character I created for Spidey, but it feels like they may have merged it with Morlun a bit. Don't ask for any details, because this is the first I'm hearing of it, so my guess is as good as yours." By the way, neither Ezekiel Sims nor Morlun wore a Spider-Man-esque outfit in the comics. They were just guys that wore clothes. I would say Julia Carpenter has been fairly prominent in enough comics that Julia Carpenter is a pretty important character. I'm a little surprised in a way that they decided to do a movie like this based on Cassandra Webb, Madam Web, instead of Julia Carpenter, to be honest, because she's been through Secret Wars. She was a member of Avengers West Coast for a long time, had her own title as Spider-Woman. She had her era. Didn't really take off, but yeah. Oh, the trailer gave you an aneurysm. That's too bad. Anya was a Rania, but she later took on the mantle Spider-Girl. Who was Arachne? I guess I knew that she was a Rania. Sorry. Who was Arachne? Was Maddie Franklin Arachne? I can't remember now. I'm getting corrections. Thank you, folks. Aranya, yes. That just happened, yes. Odd that they aren't including Jessica Drew, the most successful Spider-Woman. Well, she probably could support her own movie without other people. Oh, okay. Julia Carpenter went from being Spider-Woman. She called herself Arachne. That's right. Thank you. I it's hard to keep up. There's a lot of Spider Girls and Spider Women. There just are. Hello to Erwingu. And if I missed anybody saying hello, I'm sorry. I definitely greet you all. In fact, I give you the patented double salute. Am I going to talk about the Coyote versus Acme movie situation? No, I didn't really read up on it. It's not really a comic book, so I sort of missed that one. Sorry. I wasn't planning on talking about it. Was she with Freedom Force? She was also with Force Works. So, yeah, she might have been... I think you're right that she was with Freedom Force, working for Val Cooper. Yes, nowadays Julia Carpenter is Madam Web. And the thing is, they actually have her walk around in more, like, sunglasses and like a red leather jacket, which is kind of the look that they're using for Cassandra Webb in the movie. So they just mash it all up and come up with something new. Not really new, is it? Just a mashup. Scott Pilgrim, we talked about briefly at the top of the show. It's out on Netflix. It is rated TVMA. It's not that offensive. Why is it rated TVMA? Well, there's an explanation here. Let's look first on the right-hand side at this post. It says, note to young people and their parents, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is rated TVMA. We were informed this rating was due to Julie's swearing. We tried to bleep her, but sometimes she's just too powerful. If you or your kid has seen the movie or read the books, this isn't more mature than those. That's true. So here's the showrunner with like a sort of a follow-up there. He says, we didn't realize until it was too late that if you start the bleep a few frames after the start of the first consonant sound and end the bleep in the same manner, which we did for laughs, so you might not hear the word, but you'd hear oof and k, and you can put it together, you got the same rating as if you had actually unbleeped profanity in the mix. So they weren't trying to get a TVMA. They were trying to be funny, and they didn't realize that the way they did it meant that it automatically just gets stamped TVMA. In the comics, Julie always swore, but she had, the bleeped out stuff. It's so funny. I gotta say, every time I'm ready to quit Netflix because they cancel shows that I like all the time and they jack their rates every once in a while, they do give me some things that I like. I really like the Pluto adaptation, and I liked at least the first episode of Scott Pilgrim, and both of those are complete series. There doesn't need to be a second season. So if they can do things like that, I might stay with them, but boy. The rating system is whack. Yeah. I don't think gelato is vegan. Isn't it made from some sort of cream or something? I forget. All right, moving on. The original, or one of the original actresses from Power Rangers, has finally launched her own Power Rangers comic. We knew this was coming, but it is finally launched. What am I talking about? Amy Jo Johnson. She played the pink Power Ranger when that show started. Well, she has written a 4-issue Power Rangers comic, co-written, really. And it's crowdfunded. So the story that they describe on the Kickstarter site is that it imagines a world where the original Power Rangers never separated and defeated Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed, but at a terrible cost. 22 years later, the team reunites to remember their fallen friends, only to learn Jason, the Red Ranger, has disappeared. Will the remaining Rangers be able to track him down, especially with a mysterious figure in pursuit? So basically, it's just older Power Rangers. We'll see what happens. It got funded within 45 minutes, so apparently there's plenty of Power Rangers fans out there. And there's a link if you were curious. Yeah, it's always interesting when somebody outside of comics gets a shot at making it. I hope it's good. I hope it's good just because good comics are good comics. I'm not I know a little about early Power Rangers, but I'm not a huge expert either. But I definitely saw some of the first 2 seasons. Not all of it, but some of the first 2 seasons. I remember who Amy Jo Johnson was. Um, yeah, kinda cool that she's working on a book like this. There was something I was gonna say, and it all of a sudden it, like, slips my mind. Oh, I think that, yeah, if you go to the, site, it lists who the artist is. Um, Dan Mora in the past drew some Power Rangers comics. He's not the artist on this 4-issue series, but they did get him to do some character design work, showing what the characters would look like, 22 years later. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's a what if. It's a what if, like, they never all retired. They just kept superheroing into their middle-agedness. Now she has to make a comic for the Massiverse. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Higgins has met her or has some connections. I mean, he wrote a lot of those really popular Power Rangers comics. I know he knew Jason David Frank very well. Uh, it's not my place to tell them, but he definitely has some very interesting stories about Jason David Frank. If you ever get a chance at a convention or something like that to ask him his stories about Jason David Frank. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. He's got, yeah. The artist is Nico Leon, who did some work on Teeny Howard's Catwoman, but the Dan Mora concept art looks great. Dan Mora is fantastic. Yes. Kevin says Mark Waid has Dan Mora handcuffed to his drawing board. I think it's a cool premise. It's definitely made for people that are they're like 40s by now, because they're the ones that remember the original Power Rangers. Maybe late 30s. I don't know. It just depends. It was a long time ago that Power Rangers started. How long ago? Let me think that through. Would have been probably like maybe 98. No, no, no. Earlier than that. It was probably like 1993 or 1994, right? Yeah, it's got to be like 30 years old. The American Power Rangers, it's got to be 30 years old. Wow, I didn't really think about that until just now. 30 years ago. 30, yep, 92. Okay. Wow. All right. Got it. You guys know this stuff. That's awesome. I'm 31 and I remember it. So we would have been coming out, like, you would have been like catching it sort of what, as reruns or something when you were really little? Wow, that is a long time ago. The movie was 94, Ivan Ooze. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Moving on. Uh, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Fantastic comic. It is getting an adaptation as a movie. Uh, if it can get more attention on the comic, that's a good thing. It's a great premise. It was a really, really solid 8-issue series. Really, really good. I strongly recommend it any chance I get to talk about it. So, Anna Noguera, I'm guessing at the pronunciation of her name. She's written for TV shows so far. I don't think any movies, but also theater. I know she wrote some theatrical stuff, but she wrote for shows like The Vampire Diaries and The Blacklist. Haven't seen it. Sorry, don't know. She's been announced this week as the writer of the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie based on the comics by Tom King and Bilquis Evely. James Gunn had a quote about it, saying, "We see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he's an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock chip off Krypton and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life." Yeah, Supergirl has got an edge to her, depending on which origin and stuff, but yeah, most of them is that origin. Power Rangers, the arthritis force. That's not nice. When they're superheroes, they probably don't have arthritis when they put on their masks and helmets and such. But yeah, look, it was an excuse for me to bring it up. I recommend the comic. Okay, look for it. If you haven't read it yet, get the trade paperback. It's very, very good. I'm missing out on the Blacklist with James Spader. Maybe. I just don't have time for a lot of TV, that unfortunately. So I could stop making YouTube, I guess, and watch a little more TV, but I don't think I will. Who do I think should direct a Supergirl movie? I think Joseph Kosinski would be a great choice. Well, he's good with special effects stuff, so that's not a bad choice. I don't know. Look, realistically, what tends to happen with most of these big superhero movies, you get somebody that's directed one or two modest things and is willing to work within the studio system method, is good at like the character dramatic stuff and is perfectly willing to hand over to the second unit the action and special effects. That's what happens. This is good coffee. Another comic book movie coming up. The Deadpool director directing Alien Legion. I wonder how many of you remember Alien Legion. It's not a bad comic. So, Tim Miller, the guy who directed the first Deadpool movie, is signed up to direct an adaptation of Alien Legion. If you're not familiar, Alien Legion was co-created by Carl Potts. He was the main driving force, along with co-writer Alan Zelenitz and artist Frank Sirocco. Carl Potts was an editor for a long time at Marvel, but he was also an artist and a writer. For instance, the one piece of art I think you'd probably recognize, he drew the cover to Punisher War Journal #1. Jim Lee inked it, but Carl Potts drew that. And Carl Potts, I believe, was the editor on that run. Anyway, Alien Legion was one of the first comics out of Marvel's creator-owned imprint, Epic. Yeah, they did have a creator-owned imprint. Epic did a few interesting things. They had some anthologies that were like sort of sci-fi and fantasy. They imported Akira at a time when not a lot of manga was being imported. And they did some original creator-owned stuff where the creators kept their rights. Things like Alien Legion. Maybe Epic was Vertigo before Vertigo. Yeah. It was interesting. Epic had some good stuff. I think Epic had Gru the Wanderer by Sergio Aragones, if I remember right. That was probably the first Epic book I was reading. Epic Illustrated was a really good anthology. Some really cool stuff. Yeah, maybe they will reprint the trade paperbacks. I'm pretty sure Epic did do Moonshadow. That sounds right. No, I'm pretty sure that I think that they did Moonshadow. It's hard to remember all the things. I'd have to look in front of me. But yeah, they did some good stuff, to be honest. They really did. If you ever want to look up Epic Comics, Marvel had you know what else they did? ElfQuest. Yeah. Epic was ElfQuest by Wendy Pini. So they did stuff that like basically wouldn't necessarily fit in just Marvel Comics, but that they were like still happy to publish. So yeah, there was one or two like sort of slightly tangential superhero things, but yeah. If you haven't read it, Alien Legion, like to just break it down to its absolute simplest concept, it is the French Foreign Legion in space. A bunch of aliens that just sign up to join a military force. They get sent out as a peacekeeping force by this government, and they're soldiers. They don't ask a lot of questions. What they're doing might not necessarily be perfectly normal and moral and everything. That's a great point. Tim Miller is from Blur Studios, an effects house that's been trying to break into film since the early 2000s. They tend to use 3D Studio Max, which is more used in video games than films. He sat in on an episode of Corridor Crew talking about the stuff he's done with special effects, because I'm pretty sure his studio did at least one thing, if not more, for Death and Robots, that anthology on Netflix. Pretty sure. I believe at the same time as Epic, Marvel was also doing Star Comics for kid-friendly books. Star, I think, came just a notch or so after, but yeah, Star was where they did a bunch of licensed books, Thundercats, He-Man, Care Bears. Most of that didn't last long. Nagara. Got it. Thank you for the correction. Yeah, what was his name? something with a G in it. I can't remember the character's name right now. I was in Carl Potts' SVA class last year, and on the last day of class, he told us all about the development hell Alien Legion went through to be a movie. Well, like the comic, just to be clear, ran from like about 83 to 1990. And I know somewhere around 1995, Carl Potts was heavily involved in trying to adapt it as a TV show. This would have been before, high-end premium cable, so it probably would have ended up if it got picked up at a place like Fox. But it did fall apart. So it's been in development for a long, long time, but it is the kind of big premise where you could probably do it as either TV or films, depending on, how epic you want to make it or how character-based you want to make it. I think it could work. It could work well. Yeah, ran through 1990. All right, so some comics that I really like sold out. To be clear, we're talking about the distributor level as compared to meaning it's already sold out in every store. No, there's a great chance that these comics that we're talking about could still be in your local comic shop. So first, we've got Larry Hama's A Real American Hero. So that returned issue 301, and that sold out on the distributor level. Skybound has already announced that there's going to be a second print with this variant cover here that's going to be in stores December 20th. So very soon. If you missed it, you can still read that comic. Same thing with Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers issue 2. That also sold out distributor level. That will be that will have a second print with like 5 different variant type covers, all available December 20th. So, there's a bunch of variant covers and reprints with these G.I. Joe and Transformers things. Only putting that out there in case you care, like, is it first printing? Is it second? Is this a variant cover? You might want to read the inside indicia if you want to be sure. But I was really happy to see that there is a renewed excitement for Larry Hama's G.I. Joe. Issue 301. There's about 2 issues, I think, that he did not write during the Marvel Comics run. They just to keep it on track with monthly, like they did fill-in issues. But otherwise, like he has written all of it. Larry Hama created the personalities and file cards for almost every character. There were a few in the 90s that like Hasbro did themselves, but like all the important characters, Larry Hama really created. And that's a long run. And it's a long, but it's still cool and exciting. I had a coworker say that they picked up issue 301 to see what it would be about, and was like, that was a really action-packed, exciting issue. And I was like, yeah, it's a surprisingly good comic. One cool thing is the original Marvel run had some great artists on it, and some workman-like artists. I'd say like Herb Trimpe. Workman-like artist. Not bad. Not my favorite, but not bad. Then they had some that were like really, really cool. Ron Wagner, Lee Weeks, covers by guys like John Byrne and Mike Zeck. The Marvel G.I. Joe run had a lot of good to it. Towards the very end, they kind of went a little cheap because I don't think it was selling as well, and they got like an artist that I just wasn't a huge fan of, Andrew Wildman, but I still like this story. Okay, so that ended eventually with 150 issues. IDW continued it, though. Larry Hama came back. And again, workman-like artists. But now that Skybound has it, I think that they're giving it a bigger push because Chris Mooneyham, Mooneyham, I should say, the artist on this, is really good. He's really good. Anyway, just wanted to say that. I'll talk a little bit more about it soon. This is just saying that just to be clear, the title that says G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and is in the 300s, that is not connected to that Energon universe with Void Rivals and Transformers. Skybound is doing 2 G.I. Joe continuities. They're letting Larry Hama continue his original continuity, and they're doing a new one that's set in a shared universe. And I think that's the way to do it. They might reprint the original stories. I will mention soon they reprinted issue 1 with a key change. So I'll get to that with comic book reviews in just a little bit. Let me try to blast through some more of the news. Speaking of this kind of stuff, Megatron has been hinted to return in the new Transformers comic. If you're reading that, Starscream is the leader. It's a small cast. It's Starscream, Soundwave, Laserbeak, Rumble, Skywarp, and I think that's about it, to be honest. And of course, Starscream is only too happy to be the leader, and he's like, yeah, we're not going to be bringing Megatron back. But this week, there was some hints that he is coming back. Image Skybound announced, first of all, that they're going to have that Energon Universe comic at Free Comic Book Day this May. And the description for that, hinted at something. Oh, thank you so much, Steve Sorensen, for the super chat. Comic Troopers Assemble. Give this vid a like. If you guys can just hit the like button underneath this, it helps a lot. Thank you very much. It helps the algorithm. So yeah, Starscream is in charge of this new Transformers comic. If you want to see a slightly new dynamic to things, and he starts things off pretty hardcore. Issue 1, first couple pages, he kills Bumblebee, just dead. There's some great character work, some really interesting stuff being done. So I've got a quote here from Sean Makowitz. By the way, Sean Makowitz has such an amazing voice. He should definitely be voicing some sort of character on a cartoon version of this. His voice is so deep and amazing. So Sean said something, "This is one of the Energon universe's most explosive stories yet." That's not a good impression. But what else can you expect from a comic starring the baddest Decepticon of them all? So the launches of Void Rivals, Transformers, Duke, and Cobra Commander have reminded fans and retailers just how fun and surprising a comic book shared universe should be. It's true, they're doing all sorts of changes to everything. So, on top of that, after they announced this thing for Free Comic Book Day, hinting that Megatron would be coming back, Skybound released this image to the public of the cover for issue 5 by Daniel Warren Johnson, and that's clearly Megatron's hand cannon. Does that mean he's coming back? Maybe not, to be honest. It could be a flashback on both of these. It might be, but it also might signify that, things are going to get worse for the Autobots with the return of Megatron. Joe Hill is going to return to Creepshow, and if you're looking closely, that is little baby Joe Hill in the movie Creepshow, and then this is the Creepshow comic, and there's his name there. And in between that, he might have had a bit of a career as a writer. So Joe Hill had a small role in the 1982 movie Creepshow, if you've ever seen that. He's a kid that's reading Creepshow comics. His dad is like, "Don't read this garbage, blah, blah, blah." And the kid basically invites the creep, the sort of host of everything, into the house to punish his wicked father. But Hill is going to have one of his short stories adapted into comic book form in Skybound's ongoing Creepshow comic book. They're having sort of a one-shot, special, a king-size special. It's called Joe Hill's Wolverton Station. It's going to hit stores in March, and it's a werewolf-themed horror one-shot that teams Joe Hill with co-writer Jason Ciaramella and artist Michael Walsh. I just got a kick out of that. If you guys don't know, and probably a lot of people do know, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. He gave himself a pen name so that he could make a career on his own instead of being on his dad's back. Kind of impressive. But since his dad, was the co-maker of the movie Creepshow, his son had this small role in it. And now he became a writer, and now his horror story is turning into a comic in the Creepshow comic. I just got a kick out of that cyclical nature there. It is pretty cool. I don't know if you know much about Yoshihiro Togashi, but he is my favorite mangaka, and I'm worried about his health. he is spoiling 4 different endings depending on if he can finish the manga or not. Well, that is pretty serious. Yikes. Ah, I hate hearing that. We'll wish good luck. We'll wish good luck. Off topic, but would you ever do a favorite comic of all time video? I might. It's just that my tastes for what my favorite is kind of change. I'm like, this is my favorite, and then I think about it for a while, and I'm like, well, now I'm into, instead of being into superheroes right now, I'm into horror, and this is my favorite. And then I'm like, no, wait, right now I'm into sort of like manga, action, adventure, and this is my favorite. So it sort of changes. Is all. Yeah. Anyway, good tune. Good times. Here's a quick one. Walking Dead is getting a role-playing game. Depending on if you're into tabletop role-playing games, I thought it would be worth mentioning. Coming out November 28th, so very soon, 1 week basically. It offers 2 modes of playing. So first of all, we've got a campaign mode where you can, it says it's more freeform. It lends itself to building a storyline. Okay, I'm used to doing that in role-playing games. What else? They've got survival mode, which features locations and characters from the TV series, more or less one-shot stories, like you can get in and out. The starter set comes with a condensed rulebook, pre-generated characters, and the first full-length survival scenario. Box set costs $40. Could be fun. Everyone will want to play as Daryl. Maybe so. Maybe so. To be clear, you say surprised it took them this long. They did have a bigger version of this available originally as a crowd-funded project, which came out. Now they're coming out with sort of like, they'll come out with smaller sets that cost less, but are available to the public. So, yeah. Yeah. But role-playing games are fun. Zombie role-playing games could be fun. Why not play it within the rules of this? $40 is certainly a reasonable enough price for what you're getting here, I think. So, could be good. Could be good. Since the Walking Dead was Kirkman, here's my easy segue here. Did Kirkman confirm actor Steven Yeun's role in the Marvel Universe? I think we all strongly suspected it. It just hasn't been outright confirmed. But it looks like Robert basically spoiled it. Although, to be honest, almost every outlet that has mentioned that Sentry would be in it has been saying that that's probably who Steven Yeun is playing. We did know that Sentry was going to be in the Thunderbolts movie. That Marvel announced that when they announced the movie, so that's not a spoiler, okay? Robert Kirkman sat in this past week on David Finch's YouTube live stream, and he confirmed what many suspected, that Steven Yeun is playing Sentry. So I thought that was funny. He goes, my good friend Steven Yeun is playing the Sentry in a movie. I don't think this is a spoiler or anything that will get anybody in trouble. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I don't care. I don't work for Marvel. What are they going to do to me? He goes, yeah. He called me and he said, I just came back from a costume fitting for the Sentry. I guess I only do superheroes that are yellow and blue. He said he was at the costume fitting, and I was like, ah, crap. I forgot Invincible was yellow and blue. Hey, don't you dare. Paste Pop Pete is a role for me. Who says that? Victor? Hey, sorry about that. The internet connection dropped for a second. Sorry, everybody. I'm surprised that we still have most of the audience here. At least it looks like we do. Thank you for waiting. Nope. Okay, I see the numbers dropping. Okay. I don't blame you. Sorry, folks. I wish I had a backup. Um, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm paying for the fastest internet speeds you could get. That does not mean the most reliable all the time. So every once in a while, it drops out completely for a minute. So I'll pick back up where I left off. But yeah, what can you do? Frustrating. I hate having my show interrupted. All right, but I'll continue anyway. I guess we did that story. I got a kick out of the fact that Robert was like, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. Well, maybe I am. Well, who cares? I can't get in trouble for it. uh Continuing with some Marvel comic book movie news. The Shang-Chi 2 movie is moving forward, but it's combined with the director for Avengers 5 exiting that role. So let me explain. This comes from Deadline. They said that director Destin Daniel Cretton has stepped down from being the announced director of Avengers Kang Dynasty to focus on his existing MCU projects. I thought that was probably always a possibility, to be honest. Thank you, Django Fett. I really appreciate the support. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Thank you. By the way, you've got a great icon. Uh, in the article, it does say that everything was amicable, that, he just didn't want to take on one too many things. So, fair enough. What is he focused on then? Well, first of all, they said that he's still working on the Wonder Man TV show for Disney Plus, which I was surprised by because I thought that had been canceled during the actors' strike. But Deadline says that he's working on that. And second, it says that he's actively working on developing the sequel for Shang-Chi. And and then it started going over like the fact that was like, a record for an action movie starring Asian American actors and being directed by an Asian American director, and it started giving all these nice little stats. I liked Shang-Chi. I would definitely like to see another movie with him in it. I'd be up for that. I should rewatch that movie real soon, actually. I really liked that one. Anyway. Well, it'll probably be a while until like they can even schedule it. We already know what Marvel's doing through like 2026, and I don't think they have room to fit Shang-Chi 2 in. So he's got more than enough time to repair his Achilles, just to be clear. That news made me think that they're no longer doing Kang Dynasty. They haven't said that. It's possible, I guess. It's possible. I think it would honestly be easier though to simply recast the role and continue doing the multiverse stuff. I don't think that they should like reset all that, but I'm not Marvel. We'll see. They already cast everything in that, and it just went on strike because the writers and then the actors couldn't work. But I guess if they didn't outright cancel it, then they've got the scripts and the directors and the cast, so they can probably get right into it. So that probably is happening. I understand that, Rooster. I watched Godzilla versus Kong when I had COVID, and I don't think I fully comprehended all of it, and I haven't gone back to watch it, even though I do remember enjoying at least the fight in Hong Kong at the end. But I don't remember the movie very well at all. I was out of it when I was sick like that. Off topic, did anybody get the new Arthur Adams art book that just came out? I wish I did. I didn't. I know EJ Sue, if he's still in the chat, I know he got a copy. So it looks gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. He's a great artist. Great. Has the Fantastic Four movie finally been cast? Realistically, probably no, because no, I'm sure that Marvel will confirm it the second they do cast it. But there were a lot of bits of news this week that implied offers have been sent out. So we might be hearing that pretty soon. They do need to get going on that pretty soon. So it's likely that we will hear very soon who the cast is. It's not been officially confirmed, just to be clear. I am doing rumors, but a lot of outlets said that they heard that Pedro Pascal had been offered the role of Reed Richards. I was leaning towards thinking that that would work well. I've got another really good friend, Jeff, who likes, the Fantastic Four, and he likes Pedro Pascal, and he didn't feel that it was a good casting decision. NerdSync posted online that he thought that Reed Richards should not be cast by somebody who people find likable. And I was arguing that I've always thought of Reed as like, a family man, a hero, a leader. It's really more recent to me where Reed has been sort of portrayed as maybe being too obsessed with work and a little cold and distant. And there've been like, villainous versions of him like Maker. But, I guess if you've been reading comics for maybe just 20 years or less, then maybe Reed Richards doesn't seem as warm as I think of him. So I don't know. Well, Pascal isn't that old. He's playing much older for that show, The Last of Us. I don't know. You were kind of stoked for Adam Driver. So there's a lot of different opinions on something like that. It might be a tricky role to play. Reed is very, very smart, but I think it's important to keep him a hero. And maybe it's not realistic that somebody that brilliant can carve out time to be personable. Maybe, but you know what? Maybe that's what makes him a hero. I don't know. Meanwhile, John Campea, who does, insider scoops and stuff, he said that Marvel has spoken to Mads Mikkelsen as one of their options for Doctor Doom. And yes, we all know that Mads Mikkelsen played Caecilius in Doctor Strange. But how perfect would he be as Doctor Doom? I think he'd be so perfect that everybody would be like, yeah, fine. Who cares? Caecilius, sure. Caecilius is dead. Dr. Doom is behind a mask. Yes, give us Mads Mikkelsen. That is the best name I've heard. That would just be perfect. That would just be perfect. That would mean a lot. Reed's characterization has been awful lately. Marvel loves to make the smart guys almost evil for some reason. It depends on who's writing him. I think that Reed has not been helped by things like, okay, there's Maker, right? The evil Reed Richards. Fair enough. A lot of people have an evil version out there. The Illuminati that's a tough idea to get behind these superheroes and think of them as likable when they're secretly plotting even outside of their own teams, like Professor X and Iron Man and Black Bolt and Namor. They're all like sort of like making these decisions. I don't know that I find that heroic. I don't really love the idea of the Illuminati, to be honest. So I think that Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Miller have had interesting ideas for Reed Richards, but I think that they may have set up some things that would make him not so likable, and that we need to like really refocus on it. If you jump back in time and read the comics where Reed has young Franklin, he's always making time to be there for his son and tell him stories and inflate his body into silly positions and stuff like that. And I think that that's one of the areas where it shows that, he's a good guy as compared to a distant guy or something. Yes, I am okay with Illuminati for having given us the good Planet Hulk and World War Hulk storyline. And I'm even sort of okay with them existing when there are the incursions that are destroying whole universes. I'm sort of okay with the smartest guys coming together to be like, do we have a solution for this? But to just like sort of hang out and solve other problems, I'm like, it doesn't work for me. I don't know if you need Doctor Doom as the main threat, but I think Doctor Doom is so important to Fantastic Four that he should at least be in there as some sort of a supporting character. I think that you build him up and have him in a bunch of movies. Yeah, I do think that you should do that. Oh, there were some other rumors about the Fantastic Forecast. The current rumor is that Eben Moss, and I always forget how to pronounce this, Bachrach, is rumored to play Ben Grimm. If you don't know him, he's been in Andor. He was Microchip in Punisher. If you've seen the show The Bear, he's on that show, I guess. I haven't seen that, but a lot of people love that show. They say it's the best show on TV these days. Vanessa Kirby is still the current front runner that's rumored to play Sue Storm, and Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things as Johnny Storm. We'll see. We'll see. They might go with Mole Man as the main villain. I don't know. I think that they should go with Paste Pop Pete, but I'm biased. Witches. There's an update on that animated series. So, first of all, Witches got picked up by Amazon. They're going to do an animated version based on the Scott Snyder and Jock comic book, horror comic. And the writer's room has picked back up. We're past all the strikes. And so Scott Snyder had this post this week. He said, just finished the pilot for the Witches animated series. Excited. Can't wait for you all to see what we're brewing up. And I told him if it was animated, it should really have slide whistles. He didn't respond to that for some reason. Maybe horror animation doesn't need slide whistles. I don't know. And that will do it for my coffee. Witches is pretty good. If you haven't read it. Really cool that Scott and Jock are both directly involved with this Witches adaptation. I think that's really important. Yeah. You got to have the whistles. Thank you for backing me up there, Beowulf. I appreciate that. Okay, I've got a couple more pieces of news. I want to keep moving because I've got some comics to review too. Let's talk about what was one of the things in the thumbnail. Liefeld's infamous Captain America art sells. Boy, did it sell for a lot. This is an actual screenshot on Heritage Auction for what it went for this week. So the bidding started at $21,000. People, look, you can argue that it is objectively not good art, but it's also pretty famous art. Like a lot of people know it. It's valuable in terms of that alone, right? My eyes. Well, sorry. You can watch the auction online, or you could, and it's probably still up somewhere. The auction took about 4 minutes, went pretty fast. It went up fast because people had a lot of online bids that like quickly get factored in. So it went up fast. And it eventually sold for $132,000. $132,000 for a sketch, just to be clear, just a promotional sketch. The auctioneer had this quote. She went, signed by Liefeld in the bottom right corner, excellent condition, somewhat unorthodox rendition of Captain America. I got a kick out of that. That's exactly what they said in the auction. Somewhat unorthodox rendition. That's at least fun. So it went for the best price that it could. I mean, best price that it could have. See what I did? It's great. We're all having fun. Yes, infamous means that you are in famous. You are in the famous group. I believe that, yes, I believe Liefeld gets the lion's share of these profits, that he sold it through Heritage Auction. I believe that is the case. One more piece of news, folks. Are you ready for the biggest news of the week? Because we've probably already blown right past it. And instead, I've got this little bit of news. Funko has launched Marvel's Bitty Pops. Bitty Pops. That sounds like something Twiki from Buck Rogers would say. Bitty, bitty, bitty pop. Bitty, bitty Buck. Hey, these Bitty Pops look good, Buck. Bitty, bitty, bitty. All right, so Funko launched these new types of Funko Pops, vinyl figurines that are about 0.9 inches high. They're little. They're blind bagged. Sell for about $3. Who knows which one you'll get? You'll probably get duplicates. And it's starting with all these Marvel Infinity War characters. Basically anybody that was in Marvel Infinity War. Apparently, unknown to me until I researched this piece of news, they had already launched Bitty Pops for Ninja Turtles and Disney and Star Wars and Five Nights at Freddy's. Cool. They will also never die. We can never stop Funko from producing more things. I can't wait till the day they start making Funko Pops based on comic book YouTubers. Anyway, folks, that's all the news I have. Let's get something set up so that we can look at some comic books. Huh? How's that sound? You can go away. Bye-bye. And we'll add something else. Present extra camera. That sounds good to me. And then we'll zoom in a little and add this. Ah, so professional. Oh, I'm a little too zoomed in, aren't I? Maybe that's a little better. Yeah. Tell you what. Get a U2s. Okay, I'll get a U2s. I don't know how to do that, but I'll try to get a U2s. First thing I'll mention real quick is this guy, the Deviant. I've talked about this a little before. I enjoy a good horror story during the Christmas season. You've got your Krampuses, you've got your Gremlins, you've got your horror movies like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is terrible, but I still like that kind of thing of something scary during like what should be a nice warm time, because there's something very scary about how dark it gets really early and it gets cold and it's just bleak outside. It's like nice and warm and safe inside, and then outside, who knows what's lurking out there because it's pitch black. Well, we've got this book, The Deviant, A Christmas Story. Of course, it's written by James Tynion IV, art by Joshua Hixson, and it takes place across two time periods. We've got modern day Chicago. We've got a writer there looking into stuff. And then we've got Milwaukee, 1973. And basically, in 1973, there was some sort of a horrible serial killer killing people at Christmas time. Does some horrible things to some kids. I'm not going to show you all of that, although the comic sort of obscures it, and dresses up like a crazy Santa. But then we jump past the arrest and everything and deal with the writer in the present day talking to the alleged killer in prison, doing an interview, trying to understand the motivations and like, why would you do all this? And he claims, no, he was innocent. He's a horrible guy in some ways, but he's probably not a killer. And then we go to another thing in the modern day where this killer might still be out there. Or is it a copycat, for instance? Well, that's the mystery. But we are dealing with just nothing supernatural. Just a crazy person dressing up as Santa and absolutely gutting people. Kind of scary. My favorite Christmas horror movie would probably be the original Gremlins. I think you can count that. Yeah, I think I'd have to count that. Dude, it's awesome. If you like horror, it's a good one. James Tynion makes good horror because he makes you believe in and relate to all the main characters. And then he tends to usually have mystery. So those are two things that can really make a horror comic effective. Characters that you like and relate to, that you don't want to see something bad happen to, and a mystery as to exactly what's going on. Those are two really important elements to making horror work beyond, like, you know, the gore, the kills and stuff like that. So anyway, I do recommend it. I thought that was pretty interesting. We got 2 G.I. Joe comics that came out this week. This one I will only talk about briefly. Skybound did a reprint of the original issue 1 by Marvel from 1981. They did a couple interesting things here, though. First, they let Larry Hama write a little forward here explaining why they're doing this. And it's because there is one panel that an editor had edited Larry Hama's dialogue on without asking him. And he felt that made it look like he was jingoistic, like beyond patriotic. Whereas he was trying to give a much more nuanced take to these soldiers. So basically in this, the Joes get a mission from Colonel Hawk here. And the mission is to rescue a doctor who's very anti, what would you call it? I'm trying to think of the word to use. She certainly doesn't support the military-industrial complex, but she's been kidnapped by Cobra because, she's really smart with something or other. The Joes are sent in to rescue her so that, there's no casualties on this island where Cobra's hiding. It's a really dangerous mission, and it's not somebody that they like. She talks crap about them. So this is the panel in question. Originally, this panel had them saying why do we have to do this? Why is it our job? And Hawk was in the original printed version that the editors had, without Larry's permission, changed. He said, we're soldiers. Our job is to do the impossible and make it look good. But here's what Larry had originally wrote, which is now the printed version. He goes, we're soldiers. Our job is to do the unthinkable and be forgotten. It's a little more bleak, but kind of just talks about how they're willing to make sacrifice. The other interesting thing I want to point out is they printed this on newsprint. And so this looks very much like the original comic did. The colors are appropriate. These yellows and oranges and reds could look way too bright if it was printed on the current, super high gloss, shiny white paper. On the more subdued newsprint type paper, those colors are just muted enough that they're not so obnoxious. So it's just an interesting experience. Otherwise, there's 1 or 2 things that were pages for ads. They've updated those ads they've got a preview for the upcoming Duke comic book, but the front and back cover are still sort of extra bonus pages just talking about G.I. Joe vehicles. If you hadn't read it, or if you're just curious to see Larry Hama's original vision, even though it's really just one panel, it's a fine pickup. But you have to be a Joe fan for that, and I get it. So G.I. Joe has returned. It's been almost a year, by the way. IDW had the license through December of last year, and for many months we were like, who's got the license to Transformers and G.I. Joe? The rumor was Skybound. Well, the rumor turned out to be true, and here we are. The new comic version continues the existing story, but it does give you everything you need to know in this. And yeah, I like this. It looks like it says first issue. If you look really close, it says 300 and first issue. That's fun. And they hired Andy Kubert to do the covers, so a superstar artist. But let's take a look at Chris Mooneyham's artwork, which I think is really the nice, pleasant surprise to this book. There's something that I would say is Kubert-esque about the interiors. It gives you a recap of all the important characters in the first 2 pages, and then it picks up with a bunch of the Joes just about to crash. Their C-130 is crashing, and Wild Bill is going to have to use all of his skills to keep the Joes aboard alive. Meanwhile, on Cobra Island, Serpentor Khan, the reborn version of Serpentor, has decided to launch a bomb that will turn everybody on it into flesh-craving zombie mutants. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. There's a lot of factions at this point in G.I. Joe. It is not just G.I. Joe and Cobra. Destro's his own faction. There's an AI and a self-aware robot conglomerate called Revanche. They're pretty unknowable and hard to figure out what they want out of life. Cobra Commander and Serpentor are battling for, who runs Cobra. But the art is really strong. I just thought I'd show that off. Nice detail, realistic, gritty. And I won't give it away, but a main character who has been in this comic for a long time does die. And that was something that Larry Hama always did with this. He'd introduce other characters beyond just the toys. I'll give you an example. This is a regular G.I. Joe character in his comics that's never been turned into a toy. He's called Multo, Filipino G.I. Joe member. Dawn Moreno. She is an older teenager who's had Snake Eyes' memories and skills implanted into her brain with the brainwave scanner. These aren't action figures, but they're important characters in the book. But sometimes both the existing characters and the new characters will get killed off. There was a drug dealer faction. It was very brief. There was a toy. There was one episode of the cartoon, but it was by Deke, not by the Marvel Sunbow. And he was briefly in like 2 or 3 issues of the comic. Not super important. Yeah, Revanche is pretty cool. Just ordered 1 and 2 of the Deviant and 301 G.I. Joe. Well, great. I'm glad that I interested you. That's one of the characters that got killed off at a certain point. Cobra Commander's son was killed. Just to be clear, Larry Hama killed off Snake Eyes, the most popular character. At the same time, there is a little bit of sci-fi stuff in this. Serpentor has been around since something like issue 50, and that involves cloning technology. They have a device called the brainwave scanner that was created by a guy called Dr. Venom, also killed off, that can literally read and record your mind and your memories and stuff. That's been around since something like issue 7 or 8. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Yeah, Black Friday shopping. Well, you know what? I'm trying to get ready for shopping for my family. Probably gonna have to be a little modest this year, but I'm excited to give some thought to what people want. I try to be a good gift giver. Oh yeah, G.I. Joe Resolute. That the webisodes that basically form like a small movie. That was really well done. The Immortal Thor is a really strong. Hold on, I'm having trouble. Okay. Whew. For a minute, I thought I was losing my signal again. Okay. The Immortal Thor is written by Al Ewing, guy who did the great Immortal Hulk run. And Thor basically is the leader of Asgard now. Odin is dead. Thor has his powers, but also his responsibilities. And he's got a big threat. This is Taurenos. Taurenos is this giant elder god version, sort of the Utgard or Uber version of Thor, and he wants to, conquer everything. But Thor does have a plan that he starts to enact in this, and it involves gaining some allies. So he goes to meet Storm, and I'm just going to give away one piece of this. We find out that Storm, through no magic or anything, she truly is worthy of wielding Thor's hammer and gaining Thor's abilities. So this is like his first step in gaining some allies to take on a way more powerful god, is to find ways to share his powers with others that are worthy. And I kind of love that. Storm controls the powers of the weather just like Thor, but she's also been deemed worthy. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Storm is in many ways, like the best X-Man. She's truly a leader. She's ready to make tough choices. But she can also be like very compassionate and everything. Anyway, I won't give away too much more, but Thor begins a process of forming a Thor Corps to go up against Taurenos. It's a good threat. The art is also good. Martin Coello, Very good artist. Very good artist. Good amount of detail. Varies up the shots. Dynamic. Good attention to detail. Good storytelling. There's a lot to like about it. So I do recommend it. Covers by Alex Ross. Covers by Alex Ross. Hey, another super chat. Hi, Chris. Love your channel. Question. I've never read G.I. Joe, but I'm interested in Hama's run. Where can I start reading it? Issue 1? I probably would recommend, if you're interested in it, to start it at issue 1, which there are trade paperbacks put out by IDW who had it in the past. While those aren't in print right now, they should still be available in a lot of stores. So that would be an easy way to pick it up. Most of the back issues don't go for that much, minus 2 or 3 that are a little more rare. That said, it doesn't really get going until about issue 21. It sets up a lot of stuff in those first 20 issues, but it's right around issue 21 where all of a sudden it really sort of takes off and becomes its own thing, for what it's worth. And I do think that, like, it dips a bit in the early 90s at Marvel, as, you know, Larry Hama did still have to promote some of the new toys here and there, and a lot of them were getting very neon colored and sci-fi, so they weren't always great toys. He wouldn't really emphasize them, but they had to be included to a degree. And then when he gets to do the IDW run through his current run, no more pressure. He can just use the characters that he wants, doesn't have to use anything that he doesn't want. It's really, really good. I like it a lot, but I'm biased. It's just something I like. We had a one-shot called Superior Spider-Man Returns. Now there's an ongoing Superior Spider-Man, written by Dan Slott. Most of the art in this by Mark Bagley. There is a wrinkle to this. So there was a famous story arc where Dr. Octopus took over Peter Parker's body, got access to his memories, decided to prove that he could be a better Spider-Man. Okay? As well as, you know, basically in disguise, but out in the open, enact some of his evil plans. Ultimately, he became a little bit of a better person, pretending to do that role, and Peter Parker did come back, okay? That's all done. What's happened in this is Dr. Octopus doesn't fully remember his time as Superior Spider-Man, but he's starting to. So this is more that. Like, he's starting to remember the things that he did back then, and meanwhile, it's just sort of regular adventures with Peter Parker and Spider-Boy, and they're going up against this new villain. This villain was created by Dr. Octopus when he was in Spider-Man's body. So this person thinks that Spider-Man betrayed her and turned her into this, you know, basically Human Torch type monster. But it wasn't really him. And Dr. Octopus is like, this is great. And then at the very end, this is like where this story will go. He finally remembers. So Dr. Octopus remembers that he was Peter Parker. I think Dr. Octopus is my personal favorite Spider-Man enemy. More than Green Goblin, more than Venom. I think that Dr. Octopus is the perfect opposite of Spider-Man. He's a scientist who is too obsessed with the science and loses touch with his humanity, whereas Peter Parker is also super into science, but he doesn't always pursue his passion because he does prioritize taking care of his family and friends. So anyway, it's going in an interesting direction where Spider-Man's up against a really powerful enemy that hates him, and he's not able to explain that it wasn't him, really. So yeah. It's not a female Electro. It's a new villain. She was a scientist. She went to work for Spider-Man, not knowing that she was really going to work for Dr. Octopus. It's cool. Dr. Octopus is a great villain. The idea of, like, him knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man opens up some new story ideas. I'm curious to see where this goes, personally. As far as an issue this month that was just pure fun, it would be hard to beat Fantastic Four issue 13. I've been saying that this series is fantastic. It's mostly just one and done stories per issue. Sometimes it's 2-issue stories at most so far. This is one of those. And what is it? It's the Fantastic Four meeting doppelgangers of themselves in a parallel dimension where everybody is themselves, but they're dinosaurs. And of course, what does that lead to? Doctor Doom is able to meet his doppelganger, a Tyrannosaurus Rex Doctor Doom. Equally as smart and powerful, also a dinosaur. Hey, a huge fan from Vietnam. Had a bit of luck recently and wanted to pass it on. Thank you for what you do. Cheers. Let me think. Xin Chao, right? Isn't that hello? So Xin Chao, thank you very much. Hyo Dewan. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Sorry, I'm getting some weird glare at that angle. So I'm not going to give everything away about this, but I will say it's fun. It's legit just fun to see the Avengers go up against Fantastic Four that are dinosaurs. Last issue had the Fantastic Four go up against Avengers that were dinosaurs. Get it? Because they're crossing worlds and stuff. But they finally are able to sort of team up as they go up against Doctor Doom and Doctor Doom as a dinosaur. And it all is going to ultimately hinge on defeating him on the wiliness and intelligence of Ben Grimm, the Thing. He's the only one that has an opportunity to potentially beat him. As I say, if you just want a comic that's pure adventure and fun and a little funny, Fantastic Four right now is really, really strong. Most of these you can just pick up any issue and you're going to get a full story. If not, you might have to read a single other issue to get that full story. They're just doing one and done or two and done. It's good. They're building up the characters. They're thinking of clever new ways to use their powers. They're putting them in slightly unique situations that we haven't seen that exact thing before and having to come up with a clever solution for it. I like it. It's really emphasizing the Fantastic Four. All of them have, they're intelligent. You know, even Human Torch and Thing, you know, they're still more clever than a lot of people give them credit for, especially Thing. But yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. Here's one I didn't like, just to be clear. I like being positive. I loved Planetary. I thought that the idea of setting up a planetary within the world of DC was an interesting idea, which I still think is an interesting idea. Got Luke Fox, Batwoman, and the drummer. And they work for an organization created by Luke Fox's father, Lucius Fox, that will investigate weird anomalies that tell us about the secret history of the world. That's what the original Planetary organization did. And that was an excuse for Warren Ellis and John Cassaday to do riffs on, you know, other versions of characters like Doc Savage and the Lone Ranger and even Batman and Godzilla and stuff like that. And I wanted to like this, but I didn't love the art. And I just thought there was a lot of talking without much of a mystery that excited me. Maybe Planetary only worked with Ellis and Cassaday, or maybe it's just taking too long for this first issue to really get the idea going. I would not call it outright bad at all. But Planetary is a pretty exceptional comic, and that's a lot to live up to. It does set up some potential interesting things for the future. One of the things that they do uncover is the ship that the Authority used to have, because I don't think they find it, but you can see it in the background. Jenny Sparks' skeleton is in there. So it depends how much you know about Planetary. I'm sure they'll give us everything we need to know. I wanted to like it. I just wasn't into it. But one more comic to talk about that came out this week, okay? And that is the 11th, the penultimate issue of Danger Street. Now, issue 11 would not be a great place to jump in, but if you haven't read it, pick it up and trade. It's a weird-ass comic, man. It is a weird-ass comic. I mean, you've got the original Outsiders, you've got Lady Cop, you've got Creeper, you've got the New Gods, you've got Metamorpho, you've got Warlord, you've got the Dingbats of Danger Street, the Green Team, Atlas, Codename Assassin, Manhunter, the original Manhunter. And you know, just like this is a book where Lady Cop accidentally kills Warlord, and she's not a bad person for it. Like Warlord messes up. Oh, it's funny dialogue, crazy stakes, horror, like villains that you just hate. Oh yeah, it's got Dr. Fate. It's got the original Starman, the blue alien. Just wild. Just wild. Why does it have all of those things? If you didn't know, Danger Street is taking all 13 characters from the DC series, DC first issue special, an experimental thing in the early 70s, where they would just do like one issue of a character to see how well it took off. And some of them continued, like Warlord, or came back like the New Gods, and some of them, like Lady Cop, we've never seen again until now. Just crazy. Tell you what, we've got a little time. I'll draw a little. I've been working on this here and there. What do I have for pens? Let me see. I'll use this one. What are you all reading that you would recommend, that you would say is not miss? I'm going to take off my glasses while I draw. Lady Cop, yes. I forgot Danger Street last week. Oh, don't forget it, Rob. It's weird, but it's good. Yeah, I'm impressed with the stuff Tom King has been doing for a while, and I know that he's got an upcoming comic adaptation of the story Animal Farm by George Orwell, set in a pound, an animal shelter in the in the present day, I believe. I'm very curious to read that. That comes out pretty soon. Not out yet, but will come out soon. Great story. Certainly seems relevant for our times. Yay, drawing. Sakamoto Days. Yes, I've heard that that's good. I've read a little of it. Louise Simonson's Jean Grey miniseries is really good. Okay, started checking out some Jim Mahfood. I didn't know he had such good taste in music. Yes. Oh, I need to call Jim. Oh, geez. Okay. Volume 12 of Chainsaw Man is amazing. I like Chainsaw Man. Okay. Draw Lady Cop helping Starscream? No. He should do the same thing for the characters from DC Bloodlines. Well, Tom King could probably make it work, but yikes. Danger Street is exceptional. The issue with the battle between Codename Assassin and Manhunter is so good. I would call that the standout issue. Yeah. Does reading Wikipedia count? Sure, it's reading. Animal Farm by Tom King. That one is going to be a ton of smiles and laughs. Okay. EC Comics reprint. Yes. I'm reading some webtoons called Marshall Peak and Other Tales of Gods and Demons. Nice. The new Daredevil run by Ahmed is great. I like hearing that. A reread of East of West. Yeah, Jonathan Hickman. Right. Good book. Arts and Crafts Time. There was an Ashcan edition of Animal Pound this past week. I heard about that. I haven't seen it. It's gold, silver, bronze time. Top Captain America writers not named Ed. Okay, top Captain America writers not named Ed. Mark Grunwald, Mark Waid, and who's my third? Because Ed Brubaker would be the number one. Mark Grunwald, Mark Wade. Jack Kirby when he came back to Marvel. Yeah, Jack Kirby did his own Captain America run. Yeah, thank you. Reading Dan to Dan. Very cool. I'm looking forward to that too, ChemDog. Steve Englehart is a great choice. I'm reading some old school Next Wave Agents of Hate. I really want to discuss that on my Comic Tropes show someday. Joe Simon should be included? Probably. I was going with personal favorite as compared to most influential, in which case I would put Joe Simon way at the top. Rick Remender is underrated. He would probably still make it into my top 5. Yeah. I'm excited. Sunday, I get to go to a concert. I don't get to do that a whole lot, but a friend of mine had an extra ticket, and he offered me the chance to go see, Depeche Mode. So I'm pretty excited, folks. On Sunday, I get to see Depeche Mode. Oh, is anybody cooking anything unique or interesting for Thanksgiving? We've got Thanksgiving coming up. Are any of you out there cooks, or do you help out with like a specialty, either a dessert or a side dish, anything along those lines? Always curious to hear what people cook. I always love hearing about people cooking, because when they do, they tend to be passionate about it, I feel. Very curious to hear about that. Oh, hey, another super chat. Thank you. Hey, Chris, curious if you've heard about this new adult animation series, Scavenger's Reign, on HBO. It looks great. I have to admit, I have not heard of that. Scavenger's Reign. That's completely under my radar, Larry. I appreciate the super chat. If I get some extra time to watch TV, I'll keep that one in mind, no question. Can't wait to hear about the concert. I'm pretty excited. Yep, Thanksgiving is definitely, American, but yeah. Banana eggnog? That sounds awesome. Dialogue-free comics are interesting. Sometime I might make an episode about that. That's really cool. My health doesn't allow me to do much cooking-wise, but I am making an orange creamsicle cheesecake for dessert. Orange creamsicle? Oh my God, yes, please. A bunch of people saying that Scavenger's Reign is good. Okay. Cattle Decapitation Immolation and Saguisagabog. I don't know that band. Okay. A friend of mine saw Depeche Mode last night in Colorado, posted the concert footage on her Instagram stream. It looks great. I hope so. I like them. And I'm old, so they're like a band that I still like. Very cool. Depressed Mode put on a great show. Nice. Yeah, man. All I ever needed, all I ever wanted. The last Depeche Mode concert I went to was in the 80s. EJ, don't share your age like that. It would be cliche, but probably Enjoy the Silence. Probably Enjoy the Silence is my favorite. Yeah. I can't tell if Dr. Shubil went to a concert or a crime scene. You guys are funny. You could host your own comedy podcast without me here. So yeah, Starscream Victorious, I'll call this piece. Starscream, you're an idiot. If I'm an idiot, then why did I defeat you? You've got me there. I'd be curious to hear all the different people that have drawn Transformers explain what they think is the hardest part about drawing Transformers, because for me specifically, it's that they don't quite follow any perfect rules for proportions like when you draw people. So you can come up with a pose, but you end up sort of cheating and adjusting things. Chris is off the mic. Now I'm the leader. I do not cede this mic. I do not cede this mic. Nicole ordered pies from Molten Farms, so I won't be making anything this year. Guess I'll be the dishwasher. Oh, well, let me follow up. You know, you were feeling sick the last time I talked to you a couple days ago. Are you feeling any better, Jeans? I hope so. I hope you're well enough. Depending on when you are heading out, I checked on some shipping. I sent some like holiday stuff for you and the family, and it should arrive on Wednesday. So depending on when you potentially head out to see Dad, there might be something in the mail for him as well if you get that before. We'll see. Municipal waste. Peter Gabriel's tour. Awesome. I like Peter. Oh, Duran Duran. I like a lot of Hall & Oates. I don't know if I need to see them in person, but I'd like to see the others. I think trying to draw them animated is easier. Maybe. Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, I hope you get better soon too. I'm always willing to help out. I think that what I end up doing most Thanksgivings is you tell me to clean something up before or after, and I'll just turn into like, I'll just pick up the slack there. I don't really have any specialty that I think I could speak about preparing for the holidays. I'm sure I could do just about anything. I feel that anybody can follow a recipe. People say like, "Oh, I can't cook." I'm like, "No, you can. You just don't want to." I think anybody can cook. I really do. And sometimes I sincerely enjoy cooking. I find it a creative experience and fulfilling. I also find it a little exhausting. And I don't know. Wait, I still function. Wanna bet? Starscream. Yeah, anybody can. That's true that not everybody can cook well. With the one wrinkle, I'll say you practice any dish, and I bet you can do it right. You just might need a few more times. The only thing I think I have as a challenge when it comes to cooking is that when you have to balance multiple things, you know, like this cooks at this rate, so I need to start cooking the veggies now, put the rolls in now, make sure I'm like basting this or that. I do run the risk of possibly forgetting like the exact timing on something if I'm doing too many things at once. Whereas some people are good at multitasking there. I think I'm not great at multitasking there. If that makes sense. Which Transformer would you want to be friends with? I'm sorry to hear that. That's frustrating. Better at baking than cooking. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. I would say I'm best at grilling. I don't have any specific plans to do any Black Friday shopping now. Um, unless I somehow see a deal for something that's for somebody else. I mean, I'd be willing to get up, but I don't usually look for that kind of stuff. Donatello's not a Transformer. Making up for last week, top 3 sides with a good steak. All right. Simple baked potato, a cigar, a nice Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm serious. Those are things that can really bring the taste of the steak back. A good steak, and then like I don't have cigars a lot, but sometimes you have a good cigar and it draws back out that taste and it enhances the flavor. Same with a good red wine that's paired with it. Yeah, good question. That's fun. Thank you for the super chat. Wheeljack was my first Transformers toy, so he's my favorite. That makes sense. That makes sense. Metal Hawk, nice pull. Soundwave, that voice alone. Yes. A second steak. I like that. Shockwave. Megan Fox wasn't an actual Transformer, though. I have shopped on Black Friday a handful of times. It can be wild, but I'm also not the kind of guy that necessarily needs anything specific, so I don't hurl myself into the fray. Boy, there have been some crazy stuff. You know, I was talking to my sister. She's here in the chat room. I was talking to her a few days ago and asking her, you know, like, do you remember from like, you know, our youngest childhood, any specific like Christmas, like that was kind of like, it just stays in your memory? And she goes, yeah, you know, I was pretty young, but like getting my first Cabbage Patch Kid. And if you guys don't know, when they came out, oh my God, were Cabbage Patch Kids insanely popular. They were also insanely hard to get. And I was also pretty young, but my mom would like hear a rumor, you know, like there was like a sort of a round robin phone tree of like these moms calling each other going like, I hear that Caldor is going to have some of those Cabbage Patch Kids going on sale this afternoon. And so like all of a sudden everybody would have to like sort of drop everything and rush to the mall to try to get one. And I did that with my mom like 2 or 3 times where we were unsuccessful. But like I saw some people just acting like absolute savages, like just fighting to potentially get a Cabbage Patch Kid toy. It was wild. It was so crazy how popular those were. There have been other popular toys. That was just one that happened in an era where I was like the right age to be going to the store, like, you know, tagging along with my mom. We did ultimately get one for Jeannie. We did ultimately get one. It was a big deal at the time. It was a big deal. Big Convoy. You remember the Cabbage Patch Kid craze. Yep. Cosmos, Waspinator, Beachcomber. You guys have some fun choices. I remember all those guys. Who would have thought a leather company would hit it big with Cabbage Patch Kids and ColecoVision? Yeah. Well, Coleco bought that from like some lady that was making it purely out of cloth, and then they like fashioned the plastic heads, as I recall. But yeah, that was crazy. I remember, yeah, somebody mentioned Tickle Me Elmo was really popular. There was no one in my family that was like of an age that would be interested in that. So I avoided that craze completely. That was just not a thing for me. But I definitely remember hearing about that in the news, that was the popular one for 1 year. I'm trying to think if like I ever wanted something that was like just really popular at the time. And I think that there were, you know, there were things that I want that I did get and that I didn't get, but I don't think that there was ever really a thing I was asking for that was like the hot toy. I don't think. If there was, I just didn't get it, I guess, because I don't remember anything like that. Maybe my sister remembers differently, but I don't remember asking for anything that was like the hot toy. There were a couple things that I wanted that I didn't get as a kid, which is fine. Um, I know I really wanted to get the Ewok Village playset when Return of the Jedi was out. Didn't get that. That was probably too expensive for us at the time. And honestly, I look back at it, it's not that great. But it probably would have hit pretty big at my age. I was probably young enough that probably would have hit big no matter what it was. Was there ever a comic that you guys wanted that a toy that you wanted for Christmas that you just never got? Super Nintendo Classic a few years back. My niece wanted one rough. That was popular, wasn't it? I think that Chrissy and I did get one. And you're right. I think that they were really popular. I think we just lucked into it. I begged for the Star Wars B-Wing. I remember that one. I remember that. Toys are good to have because then you have a reference to draw. That's true. Yes. My younger sister was born 1979, and I remember hunting for both Cabbage Patch Kids and Teddy Ruxpin for her. Yeah, we never had a Teddy Ruxpin, but there were a friend or two that had that. And I remember that, like, while it came with its own audio tapes that you'd put in his back and he'd move his lips as though he was, talking, you could put in any cassette and he'd start talking. So, like, we had fun putting in, like, rap tapes eventually. And, he's singing, like, NWA stuff. That was kind of funny to us as a little kid. I had the Death Star playset. Still have it in the basement somewhere. Wow. I have a whole bag of G.I. Joe little accessories for drawing references. I still have my stuffed Wicket the Ewok. That's nice to hear. That's nice. That was a cute toy. And I'm not surprised that the Ewoks were popular. Inspector Gadget large doll. Oh, I loved Inspector Gadget at a certain age. Optimus Prime. I got a gun for Christmas when I was 11. Oh my God, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. A Fur Real Friends animatronic horse. It was a different time. I don't know that one. I don't remember my siblings or myself ever asking for specific toys. That's good. I always wanted a G1 Fortress Maximus Complete. I had one briefly, but my brothers wanted an NES instead, so my parents told us not to open. Oh. Shogun Warriors. Yep. Rubber band guns. I think you can still find those here and there. Like there are things, yeah. Always wanted the USS Flag. That thing was huge. That thing was just so huge. I think I did have a friend that had one now that I think of it. Yeah, my friend Bill did have one in his basement. I don't know why we didn't play with that thing much, because now that you say that, like, we were into G.I. Joe and he had one, but we didn't really play with it that much. Weird. Yeah, I remember my Inspector Gadget toy. I remember it. I always wanted the Barbie Corvette and her horse Dreamer. Oh, for some reason I don't really remember that anymore. I mean, you had a few Barbie figures, so I know you liked it. I just don't remember you wanting that. The Microman figures, I still think those look cool. I still think those look cool. Wow, you guys have some good memories. It's amazing how much our childhood stuff can stick with you, isn't it? It feels so important for a while. I need this one. I know I was a brat when I was really little, like I think kindergarten age. Smurfs were out, and if I saw one in a store, I know I was like begging my mom. I was like, I need this one, and I did not always get them. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was, my mom having, like, she was a little sick of me being so whiny at that age. I've heard of it. I remember getting a few of them. I don't really remember whining for them, but I'm told I was, or I did, and I believe it. I believe it. I didn't have a Smurfs toy, but I did have a Snorks one. Oh, that was even more short-lived. Oh yeah, I've seen those rubber wrestling figures at conventions and stuff. Yep. I think the flag would be the center of the battles. It wouldn't have to move. You couldn't move it. It was way too big, and it wouldn't. It was like supported, but it wasn't really movable. If you tried to move that, it would probably buckle and break if you really pushed it around. I've always wanted to read Transformers and G.I. Joe, but the size scope of it is so intimidating. And that's coming from somebody that's right. Comments for 30. G.I. Joe is one complete continuity. Transformers has not had as long a continuity, but it just means that you have to sort of pick and choose what sort of story you want to read from Transformers. Um, it's not as much to commit to. You just have to pick and choose which stuff you want to read. But this new Energon universe is just a complete jumping on point, not referring to anything specific that's happened before. Using characters, yes, but it's all new stories starting from scratch. So if you've ever been curious about G.I. Joe or Transformers, this would be a good jumping on point. You'll probably get a sense if you like the characters and settings and stuff or not. And if you do, then you can start jumping back in time to read collected editions of stories that are well reviewed that sound interesting to you. That's what I'd recommend. I did really love Transformers when I was a kid. Transformers is what got me into comics. I was so into Transformers that when I saw a comic, that I started buying them. But then I quickly discovered other comics that were significantly better because it wasn't that they were bad per se, but the Transformers comics by Marvel were very just sort of like average. They weren't anything that special or unique in my opinion. But they still got me into comics, so I'll always love them for that. I need to figure out what I want to have for dinner tonight. I do need to eat to survive. Surviving is pretty fun. I hope none of the toys from when I was a kid would be collector's items now because my older brother had a bit of a Sid from Toy Story in the way he played. Yeah. Um, no, I didn't see the trailer yet, but I also haven't read the comics, so I don't know if I should watch that one yet. I need to see Bodies first. Soup? Pho? Huh. Two of the same suggestions, basically. Similar, anyway. Well, I'll give that some thought, folks. I'll give that some serious thought. Might be too salty for me. I don't know. We'll see. I hear the cats talking, so they're probably getting fed. Maybe that's what I need to do. I just need to learn to sort of whine exactly like my cats do, and my wife will just be like, "Aw, do you need some food?" She probably wouldn't do that. No clam chowder over here. Not my favorite. Let's see. G.I. Joe is definitely my greater intrigue. Any suggestions for hopping on point? I wish they would do hardcovers like they have. Look, you can hop on at the beginning of the IDW run. You could hop on issue 1. You could really hop on with issue 301 from Skybound. I think it should make sense, and you'll be able to pick it up. We'll see. There are good story arcs, but it here's one thing. Larry Hama very much does not write for the trade. He writes an issue, and that storyline and its subplots go as long as he feels is necessary. He writes it, he's always said, issue by issue. He does not plan ahead. He does not block it out as an outline. He just thinks very hard about who the characters are and what they want, and they sort of dictate how the story will go for him as they all come into conflict with each other. And it sounds like that could be messy, but for him, he makes it work. He really does. So he's got a unique way of writing, that's for sure. Favorite G.I. Joe classified figure. That's a fun one. Let me think for just a moment. It. Ooh, that's tough. Who is my favorite? You know, I was really, really impressed with the somewhat recent Snow Serpent that they did. It just came with a lot of accessories that really make sense, from like the skis to the snowshoes to like a skinned wolf sort of like hood and jacket. It was really, really well done. So that one's up there. I also think there's like they've made a couple Zartans. The second one with like he's got like 5 different masks that he can wear. That one's pretty cool. Thank you, Comic Troopers. Also nice. Thanks for being. Yep, I'm amazing. Retro Scarlet once she is released. Yeah, that's true. The Retro series is really cool. Nothing wrong with being Garbage Man. It's hilarious. That was his destiny. I missed something there. Sorry. If you could one signed piece of art by any current comics artist, who would it be and of what? I guess Get. Well, current comics artist. Okay, current comics artist. So I've already got a sketch by him, but I would kind of love a page by Daniel Warren Johnson, to be honest. I would love that. I'm just a big, big fan of Daniel Warren Johnson right now. It's my jam. I think he's either about to come back from Japan or has just come back from Japan, but we'll have to have him here on this show soon. We'll give that some serious thought. I have one Valaverse figure. I have their Sergeant Slaughter, and I got it because I was at a convention and Sergeant Slaughter was signing, and I wanted to get something that he signed, so I got that. You like the Range Viper? That's a nice looking one in terms of the detail, yeah. I do like the current classified stuff overall. There's one or two that like have disappointed me. For instance, I really like Falcon, but I don't love that action figure. The face on it just looks terrible. That's just one that one's probably my biggest letdown overall. You're big in Japan? Congratulations. That's my dream, is to be big in Japan. Maybe someday. It's crazy. I mean, I know I just got back from Japan, but I hear of like people like Jeff Darrow and Daniel Warren Johnson going to Japan, and I get a little jealous. I'm like, I kind of want to go back. I want to go with those guys and like, discover Japanese stuff together. That would be fun. I'd be so curious to experience Japan with Jeff Darrow, somebody that like, went there in the 80s, and like I went there in the 90s, but he went even earlier, so he could really tell me what's changed. We'll see. Maybe someday. Scrap Iron is a really good G.I. Joe classified figure, by the way. Alphaville can make a song about you? Forever young, I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever and ever? That was Alphaville, right? I don't know what prompted you to think of Alphaville. I don't know exactly what I said that provoked that, but that's fun to think about. Man, Who would have guessed? But looks like Starscream sure beat up Megatron here. That's too bad for him. It happens. Got to be careful. Oh, did they have a song called Big in Japan? Got it. I might just like it a little. I was a fan of Alley Viper, something about orange and blue. I didn't love the orange and blue, but I love the sculpt on that one. So I really personally like the Crimson Alley Viper. I like that. All right. Good night. Thanks for dropping in. In fact, it's a little past 7. So tell you what, guys, this is as good a time as any to call it a night. And because guess what? I've got to finish editing a Comic Tropes episode. I know you all want that, right? And then tomorrow I'm recording another episode. So we're going to make this happen. Am I going to put any Zipatone on this cover? That's an interesting idea. I might, Joe. I wasn't thinking of it, but now I might. Yes, if you pan out, this is my thought balloon, actually. I'm thinking this. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for the super chat. This was fun. Take care. That's nice to hear. That really is. Trying to make a fun show here for us all just to hang out and talk comics. But I think I will call it a night. Start turning off the lights. That'll show you how serious I am. Look at that. When the lights go out, baby, when the lights go out, I put on my glasses. This was great. I'll see you very soon. And until then, keep reading comics. Take care, everybody.